Good afternoon, everybody. Today we are going to work on these. Just some liquids just don't mix lab. Okay, so I'm doing the video because not necessarily everybody has a scale at home that's going to work to be able to measure to figure out your densities. What we're going to do in today's experiment is we're going to mix together white vinegar, which I've already prepped here in my cup. We're going to mix together with that, we're going to mix some canola oil, or if you want to do this at home, any vegetable oil will work, any cooking oil. And we're going to use our corn syrup again. Okay. In addition to those liquids, we're going to be using a tall graduated cylinder so that we can observe our, make our observations. And I've got 3 little graduated cylinders so that we can measure the volume of liquid we're using so that we can measure density. And again, I have 3 here so that I can speed up the process. I don't have to dump it, clean it, dry it, then weigh it and start again. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want us to fill in our hypothesis. So what you need to do is guess or figure out or make a prediction of what you think is going to happen when we mix the 3 liquids together. So what you should do now is pause the video, write down your hypothesis. All right. Now that you're back, let's start doing some measurements so that we can fill in the table at the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a cylinder on the scale. I'm going to zero it so that from now on when I measure the weight, the only thing that's going to be measuring is the volume, is the amount of mass in the vinegar. So I'm going to measure out 15 milliliters of vinegar. All right, so I actually have 16 milliliters. I went a little bit over, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Just means in my chart for vinegar, my volume is going to be 16 milliliters, and my mass is going to be 15.39 grams. Okay, so you should fill that out in your chart now. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I am just going to pour that into my cylinder. I'm going to pour on the side. And I'll put it up on the scale so that you can see. So what we can see now is that we just have the vinegar in the scale, or in our cylinder. And so now in my first picture here, I'm going to just draw my observation. Okay, so I've done my observation, and as you can see, I've got a line showing that I have vinegar, and the little v just represents vinegar in my observation. You should pause the video and write that down now. All right, now I'm going to move on to my next liquid. So just to mix stuff up, I'm going to add oil next. It doesn't really matter which order you put them in. So I cleared it, I'm at 0, so now I will be able to get the volume and the mass of my canola oil. All right, so this time I have 15 milliliters right on of the oil. So my volume is going to be 15 milliliters. My mass is 13.48. 13.4 grams. And so now our data table should look like that. Pause the video, write that down. then now I'm going to mix the oil with my vinegar. And I can now record my observations by drawing the picture on my second cylinder. So now our cylinder should look like this, where we've got a clear layer here, which is our vinegar, and we have a layer on top, which is our oil. Pause the video, make sure you've got your drawing. And now we'll do the last substance. We'll do our corn syrup. Alright, so our graduated cylinder has been measured and tared, so it's down to 0. We'll now get the measurement of our corn syrup. Alright, so we have about 16 milliliters of corn syrup. And we have a mass of 17.1 grams. Or 17.10 grams. Okay, take a moment. Make sure you get that in your data table. Alright, last thing we need to do now for the liquids is we're going to slowly pour the corn syrup into graduated cylinder. Okay, so we have a layer here at the bottom that is the dark brown, so that's going to be our corn syrup. Then we've got our clear layer, which last time was vinegar, so it would still be vinegar. And then on top is our yellowish layer, which is the cooking oil. So we need to record that in our drawing of our test tubes. So I'm going to have my corn syrup be dark blue. I'm going to label it with a C. I'm going to leave the vinegar clear, label it with a V, and I'm going to have my oil kind of a lightish blue, and I'm going to label it. So you should have 3 cylinders that look like that. Pause the video, do your drawing. Alright, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to add this little plastic block to it. Okay, and we're going to observe what happens. So what you can see, or hopefully what you can see, is that the blue block is kind of floating on the top of the vinegar and at the bottom of the oil. In our last cylinder, we're going to draw that. So we've got, in our last drawing, we've got our corn syrup on the bottom, our layer of vinegar, our layer of oil, and our block floating kind of in the middle between the vinegar and the oil. All right, that's the experiment. Now what you need to do is you need to go back to the front side and you're going to calculate your density. So the way you're going to calculate density is you're going to go mass divided by volume. That's what's going to equal this. Okay, so I'll write that on the top for you. Mass divided by volume equals density. So you can figure out your density of your vinegar, your cooking oil, and your corn syrup. All right, and then the last thing you have to do is just answer the questions on the back. The questions this week are pretty straightforward. There's no graphing. There's no super complicated stuff, so there shouldn't be another video coming your way. All right? When you finish your answers, send them in to me. Have a good night.